I met a gypsy.
Yeah. So it's interesting to be a part of that initial 2-stroke, 4-stroke testing phase. Did you have any indication when you were testing those bikes that the 2-stroke was fucked and that it was over for the 2-stroke? And then did you have any, like, was anyone predicting the downfall of 2-strokes in the way that they essentially just got erased from the map?
So the Japanese at that time, they kind of knew like the 2-stroke ban was going to come with emissions and things like that, right? So they knew that was kind of getting a little bit tight. But for me personally, I did not know that there would be strictly 4-strokes going to be raced, you know, in the next 3 to 5 years. When I hopped on the bike, I was like, holy shit. This is amazing. I can't believe this is going to be legal in this class. But again, there are some, you know, shortcomings with the jetting, the weight didn't corner as well. And a lot of the riders at that time, I remember going to these tests and they were still preferring the 125 at the time just because it's what they knew.
Yeah.
It didn't bog. But once that we got that kind of under control, and they knew that this bike wasn't going to explode underneath them, then that's when I kind of knew, like, hey man, this era of 2-stroke is going to be over here pretty soon. But I just remember vividly going to Los Angeles County Raceway, LACR, when I first got there, not knowing what I was going to test, and they roll out this 4-stroke, and you know, my dad had an ATK and these huge fat pigs of 4-strokes. So I'm like, oh, this 4-stroke's gonna be a piece of shit, whatever. And I rode it and I was like, man, it's light, it's peppy, it has a lot of torque, and it just really changed my whole outlook on where this whole motorcycle industry was going.
And did you, like, are you one of the people that thinks that 4-strokes ruin motocross or 4-strokes ruin racing? Like that's like a whole camp, and I just don't know if I'm in that camp. But I definitely think that we've seen some pretty negative effects of almost like the 4-stroke arms race, it feels like to me, especially when KTM really entered the picture and started doing what they were doing. But did you predict then, or did you even have any inkling of like how much it was going to change the industry?
I did not know, like, pricing wise. Like, I think that's what people are freaking out over, is you're just pricing out people that can ride dirt bikes with 4-strokes, right? Because they're so expensive. But I'm not one of those guys. I'm actually really pro 4-stroke, and I'm not, people know me, I'm not really big on 2-strokes. Like, I'm older now, and I'm like, these things are pieces of shit. Like, I don't want to ride these things anymore. It's too hard to ride. But being that I understand how much money the sport costs, I like that we have a choice still. I like that Yamaha and KTM are still making these 2-strokes.
Yeah.
If we went completely away from them, then maybe I would be more on the F4-strokes bandwagon. But since we still have them out there and they're still being sold and they're still so popular, and I don't know about where you are, but man, there's 2-strokes everywhere where we are here.
Yeah.
For me, I still think that it's nice to have an option. It's just like the same thing between Feld and World Supercross. Like, I'm a fan. I want to see more racing. Like, I'm not anti, oh, WSX and all these things. Like, I'm the same way with 4-stroke and 2-stroke. There's more options for us. Like, why do people get pissed? If you don't have enough money for a 4-stroke, which I completely understand, we have options, right? We have 2-strokes that are still available. You can still get those. Suzuki, hell, people talk shit on Suzuki. Hey, they haven't changed since 2018. Well, you can buy a Suzuki 4-stroke for $5,000. Like, there's ways to be able to have fun on a dirt bike, a new dirt bike, and the options are out there. And I still think that we need 2-strokes in this industry for the people that still want to get involved in our sport at a relatively low cost and a low price point for the long duration, right? If you're putting a lot of time on a 2-stroke, it's easy to rebuild. It doesn't cost as much, right? If you blow it up, it's not as much money. Hell, I suck as a mechanic. I can change a top end. Like, we need that in our industry.
Yeah, no, and I agree, and I don't think that 4-strokes like ruined the racing either. Like, I often think about imagine if all these guys were still just racing 252 strokes. It just feels like there's these eras of professional racing that you kind of need to go through to keep the sport feeling like something is happening. And Formula One's a good example of it. I think they probably, well, I mean, not really. Like, every time they change regulations, like, it really changes the championship. It changes the drivers that are at the front of the field. And I think it doesn't have the same impact in motocross, but I just think we, like, moved to a whole new era. And I think we don't really talk about, like, the carbureted 4-stroke era as much as we, you know, that's not like a separate bracketed thing to the EFI era. But that was like a whole, man, that was a crazy era of those dudes going out there on carbureted 4-strokes and hitting crazy rhythm sections, and James doing insane on a fucking carburetor. Like, that just seems like the most sketchy shit of all time. Like, mad respect to those guys. But it's like, it seems like, you know, insane. It kind of pushed the sport forward. I think that there's probably some issues now that we should probably start to look at with 4-strokes in Supercross, because I think we've seen more injuries than we've ever seen, and more guys kind of like going out throughout the season, and I guess a bigger disparity between, you know, the top level guys. Like, how many times did we even see this year that Ando and Eli were just so much better than third, and third is not even doing the same sport as the guy in 14th. So it's like, I mean, there's probably some, you know, things to address, but I guess overall, I'm glad that the sport has kept going. I wonder what's next, you know, and like, there probably will be something cool that's next.
I do think we need to, as far as racing goes, I would like to see a displacement, the displacement lowered, but it's just tough because manufacturers, all of them are not going to get together and do that, you know. If we all were riding 350s in the premier class, I think that would help our racing a lot. I think 250Fs are fine. I don't think we need to change that so much, but man, 450s on the racing level, it's a lot of bike. Like, there's things, they're making the tracks easier. When you walk them, you're like, I don't know if I'll be able to jump that. Like, I've been on track walks with guys, like great guys, like Plessinger and these guys, like, dude, I don't even know if I'm gonna be able to stretch that out of the corner. And then by the third lap, whop, and there's 3 out. You're like, holy shit, man. So if we lowered the displacement a little bit and built the tracks maybe slightly different, I think racing will be better. I think that third place guy will be closer. I think our 14th place guy would be closer to that top 10, right? And on the consumer side of things, I mean, there's a lot of people crashing and losing their lives at tracks that I've been to lately, and I'm like, most of them is on 450s, and I think it's just these guys that we talk about, the weekend warrior guys, that they're not in shape. They're not doing the once a week deal. They're coming out and having a good time, and then one mistake is a really bad one, right? Because there's a lot of bike underneath you. So I've been preaching these things to vet guys. I go, hey man, you don't need a 450. It's not a dick measuring contest. Like, it doesn't matter if you come in with a 250cc 4-stroke. You're going to be able to jump whatever it is that you decide you want to jump when you get there. A 450 is not going to be like, oh, I got the power now, man. Like, I'm going to hit this. Bullshit. You're going to decide that when you get there anyway. So a 250 4-stroke's plenty of power for you. I don't care if you're 200 pounds and 40 years old. I feel like you're going to be safer. You still have a good time. You'll jump what you need to jump. And yeah, man, like, I love a 450. Don't get me wrong. I love riding them. It's my preferred bike, but I also know how much work it is to ride one of those things.
If you enjoyed this content, please like and subscribe. And to listen to the full 3-hour podcast, search Gypsy Tales in your favorite podcast platform or click the link in the description below. Gypsy Gang.